Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is Paul Sinclair. He's the general manager at Atlantic Records. As the GM of Atlantic Records, Paul oversees the innovation and integration of marketing, digital, artist development, creative, and content for the #1 record label in the world. During his time as head of digital at Atlantic, he created the first fully realized in-house interactive agency within a major record label. The almost 50-person team is staffed with digital/social marketers, interactive designers, animators, and web developers, product development specialists, lifestyle and influencer marketers, content and editorial managers, and e-commerce marketers and merchandisers. Atlantic Records has been recognized as the #1 label by market share 6 times from 2006 to 2015 and was the first major label to derive more than 50% of its revenue from digital sources. Please help me welcome Paul Sinclair.
Thanks, AJ. Wow, that was quite a bio. Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for having me. Wish I could see you in person. Hopefully next year I can see you all in person. Welcome to my home office. I've been working here for 24 days now. It's a bedroom. It's been phenomenal, and I love leaving this room sometimes. So I actually wanted to talk to you about two things. So when Professor Merlino and I were talking about this, I said, I have a couple of ideas. We kicked it around, and I said, let's focus on Lizzo. He said, I think that'd be great. And so I'm going to take you through a case study of Lizzo and why I think that project is both incredibly unique as well as incredibly representative of the last few years in the music industry and what it means to break a major label artist in the music industry and all the things that we've learned along the way. It's been a fascinating experience, and I'm super passionate about Lizzo, as I hope lots of people are. So I'll take you through that. And then I cut that presentation down to about 25 or 30 minutes because I also wanted to do a quick 15 minutes on, wow, what a crazy world we're living in. What does this all mean for the next 2 years or so, as you all learn and think about where you're going to go with your careers, and whether it's within recorded music or publishing or other parts of the industry, performance or whatever. So I've been thinking a lot about what this is going to mean for Atlantic Records for the future, and I thought I would share some of that with you as well. So I will try to keep us on time. I'm going to start a timer, which I meant to start and I missed, so bear with me for 5 seconds so that I keep myself on time here. Ready, go. Okay. Okay, and so I allowed time for questions at the end as well, and I know they're somewhere in this thing. Once I go out of full screen mode, we'll be able to find the questions. Okay, so first and foremost, I don't want to spend much time here, but hi. As AJ said, my name is Paul Sinclair. I'm class of 97, which both feels like yesterday for me as well as 100,000 years ago. I went to Albright and majored in business administration. I concentrated in first finance and then management. There was no music program, obviously, or no music business program. I've been involved with the program since it started, on and off, right? So I met AJ, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I've been in and out of the program. I've joined a few of these over the years. I think the last time I joined in person was maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago. I think I met Brianna there, actually, and she and I have now we're coworkers, but we have known each other over the years. And I think then I presented something like music and technology, and sort of both the history of music and technology, and then where I thought it might go, and tried to pull some lessons from that. So instead of doing that again, I wanted to talk to you about my dear friend Lizzo. So that's my background. I did not start in music. I graduated from Albright. I worked in software for a few years. I worked in startups for 2 years. And then I was lucky enough to find myself in the music industry. I joined Warner Music Group in 2001, which I have a funny graph that shows the music industry growing for 50 or 70 years. I started, and the entire industry fell off a cliff. So in 2001, Napster had taken hold, peer-to-peer music was eroding, recorded music and whatnot. And my luck was that I was a digital person living in a world that needed reinvention. So it was pretty phenomenal timing that I couldn't have planned if I knew it. I was at Warner Music Group in a variety of jobs for about 5 or 6 years. And then Atlantic called and said, hey, do you want to come over? I actually said no. Maybe we'll talk about that on the panel. But I actually turned the job down. I loved working at corporate. I thought the people and labels were all crazy. I was sort of right. But what I missed was that they're also passionate and amazing and creative and all the other things that happen at record labels. So along the way, they convinced me that I was wrong and they were right. And I moved to Atlantic, and I've been there since 2005, May of 2005. When I started at Warner, I thought it would be a cool way to kill a few years until the startup world came back. And almost 20 years later, I've realized that it's far more interesting. Although I've always thought that I might end up in the startup world someday again, I've realized that the music industry for the last 2 decades has been more phenomenally interesting and intellectually challenging and creatively challenging than I ever could have had if I had taken a different path. So I count myself very lucky, and I've met amazing people along the way too. Okay, so that's my high. Okay, so Lizzo. So in 2015, so the story of Lizzo is a couple of things. I'm going to talk to you about non-traditional marketing and non-traditional product. I'm going to talk to you about the long game of artist development. I think a lot of people think, and by the way, some record labels would disagree with what I'm about to tell you because we're all different. Everyone talks about record labels, especially majors, as they're all the same. We that work at major labels know that we're all very, very, very different. And the people that have worked at many different labels would say that the culture and the DNA and the decisions around whether you're a digital first label or a radio first label or a creative first label or a money first label, those things drive everything that the story that our label tells is. So Atlantic is absolutely an artist first. This is what we like to tell ourselves, and I believe it's true. And having been there long enough, I think it's true. An artist first, artist development label. We don't often sign artists that are really big. We love to meet people like Lizzo and then spend years trying to figure out how to help her become everything she wants to become. It's imperfect because not every artist becomes just like the rest of us. We don't all become what maybe we should become. Or, Atlantic's not the perfect home for everyone because we're all people, right? And so artists end up clicking with different people at different labels and maybe would do better somewhere else. So, and just as for example, we signed Bruno Mars after he was signed to Motown. Nothing was happening. He was sitting on the shelf. He was a writer. He was frustrated. That's not a knock on Motown. It just wasn't the right place and the right time. He came to Atlantic, and the very first music he ever played for us, we said, like, this guy is the next Michael Jackson. This guy is incredible. And so, some of it is about time and place, which is true in your careers as employees as well, as time and place matters. All right, Lizzo flipping her hair is driving me crazy, so I'm going to start talking about Lizzo now. Okay, so we signed Lizzo in summer into fall 2015. So most people think that Lizzo appeared on the stage last year. 2015, we started talking with her, working with her. We put her in a studio in 2015. She had a couple of songs. One was Truth Hurts. They were demos. We thought they were great, but they were demos. She got into a studio because she had also met at the same time a producer, a gentleman named Ricky Reeves, who runs a company called Nice Life. She and Ricky went in the studio. They worked on a bunch. They worked the demos into better demos. And so we started talking about, okay, what's the plan with Lizzo? And hey, Ricky, let's do this together. So we're partners with Lizzo and this production company / producer named Ricky and Nice Life. So that's 2015. 2016, all of these dates matter and it'll become clear as we go. 2016, we put out a song called Good as Hell. You know about that song, and we'll talk about that much later in the story. But we put this song out on a barbershop sequel, the Barbershop movie, which is a culturally relevant movie. It was the barbershop follow-up called The Next Cut. And we moved on. So the song was on the barbershop soundtrack. It was all good. It came out. It got a little play, streamed a little bit. There was video, on YouTube. It was all good. Life went on. 6 months later, she was ready to put out her first EP. She had a bunch of songs that she and Ricky had worked on. She was out there building fans the way that a great artist does, creating great Instagram content, dropping things on, I was about to say YouTube community, but that didn't exist at this point. Just connecting with fans and building her story. She had 70,000 social followers at the time, which, as you know, is not a giant number in the world of a major artist. And she puts out an EP called Coconut Oil. Great musically, super cool, great first start, streams 400,000 times in the first week in the United States. Most of the data I'm going to give you is US centric for no particular reason. It was just that what I happened to pull. So she puts this out, 400,000 stream, life's good, she's awesome, we all love Lizzo, she runs up and down the hallways, makes us all smile, and everybody wants her to win. But she's one of lots and lots of artists at Atlantic Records. We're a big record label. We believe in a lot of people, but we all love Lizzo, and we just thought, like, she's super special. Someday this will be a thing. Okay. 2017, she puts out a bunch of more music, a song called Water Me, which had a little bit of success in August. She puts out a song called Truth Hurts, which you all also now know, I'm sure. First week streams are about 400,000. So if you remember on the last slide, about a year prior, we put out her EP. It streamed about the same number. So she's grown a little bit. She went from 70,000 social followers to 220,000 social followers. So she's 3 times bigger in socials than she was just a year earlier. That's only relevant in that audience matters, right? If you've got real fans and you grow those real fans into more real fans, there's more people for the party the next time you have a great song or a great, EP or album to put out. Truth Hurts comes out and it streams 446,000 times. I have a feeling that 999, that seems funky to me, but ultimately 450,000 times in the first week in the US, right? So an amazing number, fantastic. Song does well, super cool. We move on, we keep it going. It's a song in the internet that lots of people listen to. She's got 22 million streams to date across all the music she's put out, including Water Me and her EP and The Good As Hell. The Good As Hell that was on the barbershop thing, and it's all good. And we keep moving, and we're all in. We just keep building Lizzo, and we're not rushing, and we love Lizzo, and let's just keep going, right? And so that's the spirit of believe in an artist if you think you've got an artist. Some artists are all about their songs. We always knew, and Lizzo always knew, that she was a movement. She wasn't an artist. She wasn't a song. So we put out Truth Hurts. It's a great song. Nobody really knows about it. The world keeps moving on. 2018, she keeps making records with Ricky. We put out Fitness. We put out Boys. There's a couple other things she does. There's some covers. She's all over press. There's a VH1 thing that happens, I think, in 2018, where she's hosting stuff on VH1, which in 2020 probably wouldn't really be a story, but at the time it still was because Cardi B was still hot on VH1. And so, cool movements. She's becoming more of a presence, and we're trying to make sure that she doesn't become like a personality and a celebrity, but not the artist that she wants to become. So she keeps making songs, we keep putting them out, we keep working them, we keep taking them to DSPs, we keep getting playlisting, we do all kinds of marketing, it's all fun and good, life moves on, nobody's talking about Truth Hurts and Good As Hell anymore, and we move on. Okay, October of 2018. This phenomenon happens called Bye Bitch. Lizzo starts playing the flute. This is not a marketing stunt. She plays the flute. Who knew? It's amazing. Bye Bitch explodes on the internet. She creates a flute and shoot challenge. There's a video. It goes viral. It's the first time anything from Lizzo gets outside of the tiny little world of the people that care. So maybe there's people watching this stream that knew because you guys pay attention. You're watching what's happening on the viral playlist and whatnot. But most people had no idea who Lizzo was. Most people, outside of anybody that reads the music blogs, people had no idea who Lizzo was. My wife barely knew, and she lives in the same house as me. So it explodes. The press starts talking about her in a different way. Again, we're sitting there thinking, this is amazing, but we don't want her to just be a celebrity. But oh, this is amazing. And what cool content. And she plays the flute. And this is the thing. So life goes on. So that's October of 2015, October of 2018. 3 years after we signed her. So we're finally in 2019. We're almost 4 years on. We have an album. We're super excited. We've heard, I don't know, maybe half the album so far. They're working on it. It's amazing. And so the way you tee up an album, because we always knew we wanted to put out an album with Lizzo, and she always wanted to make an album, right? Some artists in 2020 focus mostly on songs. Many still want to put out a body of work. So Lizzo wants to put out an album. We picked the first single. The first single is called Juice. We're super excited. We love the song. It's super tempo. It was actually a pretty deep discussion around what the first song had been, because we love the album and we weren't really sure what the first single should be. And picking the single only matters. It still feels like, to me, a dated concept as someone who is far more of what's next, how does the music industry need to evolve, what do we need to do different. For a while, it seemed crazy to me that in 2019 at this point, we're calling singles. But the reality of it is, calling a single is just, where are we going to spend most of our money? Where are we going to spend the most on music videos? What kind of content are we going to make? We need to help the DSPs and the radio programmers and the publicists and the TV show bookers focus. So we need to call a single. So we call the single Juice. Juice is an amazing video. It's a moment. Let me culturally, what's happening in the world is everything that's terrible and great about Me Too, right? The world is now in an uproar, and lots of people are getting outed as being, terrible, and women are getting to stand up and be very vocal about the way the world should be. And Lizzo's there talking about body positivity, and here we come with Juice. And none of this is marketing. All of this is Lizzo's vision of the world and what people should be allowed to do, and how fans should feel comfortable and upbeat and happy. And actually, I jumped over one thing. Maybe Brianna was there, I can't remember. But at Warner Music's holiday party at the end of 2018, Lizzo performed at her holiday party because she wanted to. And the entire company was on the dance floor. And every single person that left the party said, "Oh my God, I love Lizzo." And most people at Warner Music Group probably had no idea who she was. So we put out Juice, and it streams 1.1 million times in the first week. A massive number, considering just a year ago we were putting out music in bundles like an EP that was streaming in total 500,000 times. So her socials are growing. She's now at 800,000 social followers, which to you probably feels like linear growth. To us, actually, if I had the graph in here, the graph goes like this. It started out, it bubbled, it went 70, 80, 90, 110, 150, 200. And then over a couple of months, it just started exploding because people actually started discovering her. So now she's at 810,000 or 11,000 social followers. In total across our catalog, she's got 82 million streams. That number matters because it means that every single day people are discovering her, and they're all, because none of these songs have been a massive hit, they're going through her whole catalog and listening to her. So every time she finds a new fan, they're leaning in, which is really cool. 811,000 social followers is the very bottom of the hockey stick that I talked about. So January is the beginning of the album setup, right? So then about a month later, we drop a new song, "Cause I Love You," and she puts up and so that's an instant graph for the album, right? The second song that we put out. The focus is still on Juice. "Cause I Love You" starts streaming well, does 1.6 million streams, 500,000 more than the song that we said was our single. That's, a little bit of a head scratcher, but we're all like, all right, it's cool. Juice is, we have to keep working it. It's all good. Stay focused on Juice. But there's something here to "Cause I Love You." That's interesting. She puts up a tour. The tour sells out around the country in 40 minutes, including 2 nights at Terminal 5. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of tickets in New York City. So Terminal 5, if I remember correctly, holds I think 5,500 people. So that's, 10 or 11,000 tickets in New York City from a woman, to go watch a woman that most people didn't actually know who she was just a year before. T5 is a pretty big moment, especially when you can sell out 2 nights in a row, because it means that the next tour you're coming back, and the next step up has got to be something like Radio City. So T5, 2 nights, 40 minutes, the whole tour sells out. We're walking around the office, high-fiving each other. This is amazing. She crosses 1 million social followers. Holy mackerel, super cool. I can't believe I just said holy mackerel. 100 million streams crossed. Amazing. Everything feels right for this album that we're going to put out. The flute comes back. So this is an amazing marketing event. So when you ask yourself, like, is marketing something that we create, or is marketing something that we jump on top of and amplify? This is the best kind of marketing, which is the artist is an artist. She leans in. Some other artist, in this example, Ron Burgundy, which is ridiculous, also leans in. We make some phone calls to Ron Burgundy's people, right? I mean, that sounds ridiculous to say Ron Burgundy, but you get the idea. And we connect a lot of dots. So all we did was try to amplify this amazing thing that was happening on Twitter, where Ron Burgundy and Lizzo were having a flute battle, and it was incredible, and it went massively viral, and everybody's talking about Lizzo. And this is a month before the album's supposed to come out, and there was no plan for this. We just jumped in. And so the magic of this moment is that a marketer on our team saw this happening and started making incessant phone calls to make sure that we could capture the energy of it and help to make sure that every single person that we could find knew about it, including late night people, blogs, the publicity people, our partners at the DSPs. Like, this was a moment that everybody said, oh wait, when's that Lizzo album coming again? So we used the moment. It was amazing. We did not create it. It wasn't falsified. It wasn't an idea we had in a marketing room. It was just something we rolled with because it was amazing and natural and beautiful. So across 2019, a couple other things that happened, right? One is in March, she puts out a record with Missy Elliott. Lizzo loves Missy. Missy loves Lizzo. There's a lot of crossover in sort of what they stand for in the world. Tempo comes out. It's got 2.2 million streams in the first week, which is 1 million more than the Juice record we just talked about it a minute ago. It's not a single. We're just gonna see how it goes. Missy leans in. Missy signed to Atlantic as well. She leans in. They make this incredible video. If you haven't watched the Tempo video, you should watch it. Hopefully you can see the GIF going on in the background. It's phenomenal. But Tempo is just a record. So Juice is the focus. Cause I Love You is a bigger not focus. And then Tempo is an even bigger not focus. So we're all sitting around scratching our heads trying to figure out what's going on with this project. Because in the world that we normally live in, right, over the last 70 years, you build up songs and your biggest song is the one you're calling your single. So we put out an album in September. It's called 'Cause I Love You as well. It debuts at number 2. It's massive. It streams 25 million times the first week for the album. Again, she's not a global superstar. She's not even a US superstar. She's a pretty popular artist for people that care about music, who pay attention to the celebrity world and the press world and the blog world and like cool, different sounding music. The average American has no idea who this is, what this album is. They're not paying attention to it. It's not really cutting through the noise. Juice is, on the radio, sort of, kind of, and she's up to 1.5 million social followers and 140 million streams in the US. So we're going along, we're chugging along. We think we're building an artist. We're super proud of where we are. Lizzo's super happy. She's getting every look in the music industry. Everybody's paying attention, but she's one of a whole lot of artists that are sort of bubbling out there. All right, April 2019. So now I'm going to take you back a little bit. So at the same time, our sync team is out there talking to everybody they can about Lizzo, because we care about Lizzo, the artist, not just about the album or any given song. And one of the songs that one of the Netflix people gravitate towards is Truth Hurts, which we put out, if you look at the timeline on the left, back in the third quarter of 2017. So we're trying to work an album in April that we just put out, and we get a call from our sync team and they say, hey, Netflix has this great show. They're super excited about it. It's all called Someone Great. It's amazing. And they want to sync Truth Hurts. And we're like, cool. What about Juice or Cause I Love You or any of the other songs on the album? No. They want to use Truth Hurts. Okay, cool. Fine. It's all good. We believe in Lizzo. It doesn't really matter. It's 2019. We need to think about the world differently. Let's keep going. So, and by the way, all syncs are good for artists and it's all good and we keep on moving. So Truth Hurts gets a sync. We stay focused. We're driving an album. We're telling DSPs, i.e. Spotify and Apple and Amazon and YouTube and everybody else, we're super excited about the album and about Juice and about Cause I Love You. And she cracks 1 million followers on Instagram alone. She's got 1.5 million social followers. Her email list is growing. It's at 50,000 people, which means 50,000 people want to hear from her directly, in a totally other way. That's an opportunity to, get into the merch business and whatnot. All cool. Then Truth Hurts takes off on TikTok, right? And we didn't do this. This just happened. Kids start doing a DNA test on TikTok. It explodes. Everybody starts writing about it. TikTok just coincidentally is at this massive inflection point where it's explosion growth. And so there's so many more people on TikTok than there were even 9 months before. And at that perfect moment, Truth Hurts is like one of the biggest challenges on the platform. So we're talking the TikTok on the phone, our contacts over there, trying to figure out how to make sure we amplify this. All the while, this song is not on our album, and it came out in 2017. So we're now in the background, the digital marketing people are driving a song that the rest of the company actually wants to not be the song because we're all trying to stay focused on the single that we thought was the single. So now we have a decision to make in the big meeting room, and we have a whole conversation, and we decide that Truth Hurts is the song, and Truth Hurts is amazing, and we'll figure out what to do about the album, but we're in the Lizzo business, and why should we ever ignore the data and the fans? And if the fans love Truth Hurts, then we should all be in the Truth Hurts business because it's an amazing song and it's an amazing moment. And oh my God, the world is a complicated place in the middle of 2019. Because again, there's a lot of cultural relevance to what's happening. Harvey Weinstein's happening, like all this stuff. And Lizzo loves this song, and let's just go with it. So we just keep on rolling. So we put the album over here. We're still telling everybody about the album. We put Juice over here. We're still telling everybody about Juice. But we decide our new single to work at radio and with all partners across every single format and across the rest of the world, because we're starting to get interest from the rest of the world, is Truth Hurts. We do a bunch of remixes around the song, and it hits #1. And that week we do 21 million streams just on that song. So we went from 500,000 coconut oil EP total streams to 21 million streams for just a single song. And that's where the hockey stick happens. So we jump from 800,000 social followers to, in a couple of months, 7 million social followers. We don't buy social followers. We think it's a waste of money. We don't do any of that nonsense. Every one of these is some version of a real fan out there jumping in because they love Lizzo. And I say Lizzo because now we're at 800 million streams, right? It's not just this song. They use this song to get into her catalog, and they start listening to the album and the EP and the other random songs and the playlist she started curating. So we signed her in 2015. Nothing's happening. We're in 2019. It took us 4 years to get to an album. And then we go backwards and we're working a song from 2017. Totally fascinating. The conversations that had to happen to allow us to decide that we should actually embrace an old song. I will tell you that in 2010, major record labels would have never, ever worked an old song, ever. It would not because it was like we would, do this and hold on to it. It just wouldn't have made sense. Like, you move forward, And if catalog streams, that's fantastic. That's great. Or I guess not stream, but download in 2010. Um, in 2019, we now live in a beautiful world where we have to not be afraid of catalog streaming. And while you probably think this is normal, as recently as 2019, this was not a thing that anybody was doing. Nobody would have worked an old single. And I'm not saying that to pat ourselves on the back. I'm just saying that there were a lot of arguments that happened around whether or not we should work Truth Hurts or whether or not we should keep it moving and stay focused on the album that we built tools around, videos around. We've spent box loads of money around. Like, we're in the "Cause I Love You" album business, and this song taught us that catalog can help us drive everything else. So we work Truth Hurts, and life is good, and we're all learning as we go, and that's the beauty of the music industry. So then the second DNA test takes off. So we build this cute little Spotify thing. You'll see me pop up here in a minute, and it basically it connects you to your there I am. It connects you to Spotify, to the account, or I'm sorry, you use Spotify to connect in, and it tells you based on your listening behavior what percent of a bitch you are. I think I was something like an 85% bitch or something like that. It was super cute. This thing takes off. Usually when you build a nice little activation on Spotify, you do it because Spotify will then feature the music and maybe feature the activation as well. But this thing actually goes viral, and hundreds of thousands of people start doing this. The press starts writing about it. They start writing about the DNA test because it's clever, it's cute, it's interesting. People are doing ridiculous things with it. Memes appear. So we've got like traditional press writing about the TikTok DNA challenge as well as the DNA test on Spotify. And they're basically doing the promotion for us, which is a fascinating thing as well. I won't go through all the data, but Truth Hurts reaches almost 2.5 million streams in a single day. A couple of 100,000 people take this DNA test on Spotify in the first day. That's a gigantic number. I don't know how many of you do Spotify activations, but I'll tell you, it's not that many. Her artist profile starts growing. She reaches 1 million people, 1 million followers on Spotify. That's a massive number for the tee up for, what are we going to do next? Whole bunch of other stats. Her email address reaches a couple of 100,000. She's got 2 playlists she's running. One is a Truth Hurts playlist, which is a discography, has a couple of 100,000 followers. She's got a That Bitch playlist, which is a curated by Lizzo playlist with a couple of 100,000 followers. Again, I don't know how many artist playlists you follow, but I will tell you that most of them do not have hundreds of thousands of followers. Most of them, including from major record labels, have couple thousand, 10,000, 50,000, maybe if you're lucky. And most of the time they don't drive any streams. And Lizzo's That Bitch playlist, if we drop if we say, hey, Lizzo, check out this new Missy Elliott song, and she puts that on her playlist, we watch it help drive that song. So this is a really powerful marketing tool that we help to build with Lizzo that she curates. She goes to the radio. She reaches #1. That song, Truth Hurts, is #1 for 7 weeks. Again, #1 on the biggest pop radio chart in America for a song that came out in 2017 that just a few years ago, nobody on earth would have ever even considered working an old song. It's the #1 song in the country. It's amazing. It's also a global smash. She's doing 52 million streams at peak a week. She's up to 8 million social followers. She's approaching 1 billion streams from her catalog. Most people on earth now know who Lizzo is. And we've been working her since 2015. And just maybe 9 months before this, nobody had ever heard of Lizzo before outside of the people that cared. We fast forward to 2000 and the end of 2019. We're through Truth Hurts. We're going to go back to the album. We're super excited. We're going to use all of the energy. We actually re-delivered the album to DSPs with Truth Hurts on it. So there's a deluxe version. Since you don't pay for it, it doesn't really matter, but it's on the album now. So now the version of that people are listening to includes the big song that they're all looking for, Life's Good. Now let's work the album that we had put out 6 months ago. Or instead, we could work the song that we put out in 2016 from the Barbershop soundtrack. So that's what happens. when people are digging through her catalog, the album is streaming really well. It's not like the album was a failure, it's doing phenomenally well. But Good as Hell is the standout record. So we go all the way back to 2016. We start building more videos, more tools, more lyrics videos. Ariana Grande wants to be on the record. We create a remix with Good as Hell and with Lizzo and Ariana. For the first time ever, she is streaming more outside the US by double than she's streaming in the US. So we call her now a global, maybe not superstar, but sure as hell a global phenomenon. She's over 10 million social followers. All of this happens, again, over the period of a couple of 9, 10, 12 months, as far as most people are concerned. But we had actually been building her and putting out these songs for 5 years at this point, almost. She's over 1 billion streams. We hit the fall. She gets her big heyday. She gets 8 Grammy nominations. Life's amazing. We actually a little upset she doesn't get all the Grammys. Life's okay though. Lizzo's happy. She's one of the most Grammy nominated in a single year people ever. It's amazing. She's super happy. It was an amazing campaign. We learned a ton about catalog marketing and not thinking about catalog as catalog anymore, and thinking about like all music can be flat. And that was what streaming was supposed to lead us to. But it took us 10 plus years of a streaming market before we got to a world where a single could be anything in the catalog for an artist. And really, whenever fans discover an artist, that's their moment where they find their favorite new song. So there were so many lessons that came out of this project. But I think for me, catalog was one of the biggest. The other was if you believe in an artist as an artist, you've got to stay in it a really long time. We spent years working with Bruno before he exploded on his own. We spent years and years working with Ed Sheeran before he exploded on his own. That guy toured the United States for a year and a half before anybody was even talking about him. Like the world of a major label artist who has hopefully a long-term career should take years, because you're not trying to. Some record labels still stick a song up on the radio, they burn the song, and if the artist doesn't connect with the second song, they move on. The artist chance is over. Their career takes whatever turn it's going to take, which is why we believe in the artist development model of like, believe in an artist, remember that we're all people, remember that we're all supposed to love each other, remember that somebody like Lizzo doesn't come every day. And when you find that person, and there's many of these amazing people out there, you've got to like keep believing. And when it doesn't connect, keep believing. And when it doesn't connect, keep believing. It's magical. So the beauty of the Lizzo story is that we all believed in the beginning, and we were allowed, because our company is hopefully trying to do the right things, we were allowed to actually keep going and going and going and going. And then when the album wasn't the thing that exploded, we were allowed to take bets and go all the way backwards and do it, and then go back again and try it all over again. It's phenomenal. Okay, so what's next? So Lizzo finishes. She's the most tired lady in the world. She had every opportunity on earth. She was on every television thing. She was at the Grammys. She's like been busier than I can imagine. We sent her massive opportunities that she had to turn down, that were like, hey, if Lizzo does this thing, it'll be amazing. It's only going to take her 45 minutes. She just to get on her camera on her iPhone and record it real quick. And they were like, she doesn't have 45 minutes for the next 3 weeks. So, she has had every opportunity in the world. She needed some time. She's getting some time. If you pay attention to her on Instagram, you'll see she's actually doing a lot around coronavirus stuff right now. She's like, made some videos for hospitals and things, but like getting some downtime. And then we all figure out like, how do we get her to what's next? What's the next album? What's the next album that makes her a long-term global superstar? Because she's had amazing success and nobody believes that she's a flash in the pan. Yeah, so that's my Lizzo story. I'm going to jump into the next section if that's okay, and then I'll come back to questions. Okay, so I'll try to be quick here. So I just wanted to think about, in a world of coronavirus, if I were you and I were thinking about, how is my life going to be different, and will any of this impact where my career might start out? I tried to write down some ideas and things that you need to think about, because they're the things that I spend every single day and locked in this office talking about as we try to figure out what's the new normal, what's going to be the new normal, both in June and in September and next May and 3 years from now. Like, how much of a long-term impact will this have? So just a few ideas. So we talk a ton about touring. If you plan on either being a musician or working in the touring space in any way, ranging from tour managing to musician to tour manager to agent to caterer, right? Venue operator, any of those things. We keep talking about when is touring going to be back to normal? When are people going to be? Everybody keeps thinking, well, fall, because a lot of tours have moved to the fall. But like, is that real? I don't know. I don't know when people are going to feel comfortable with being with 130 other people in Mercury Lounge, which is a tiny little club, or with 5,000 other people in Terminal 5, or 10,000 in Madison Square Garden. Like, I don't know when it is that normal will happen. And I think for people in that space, it's a really scary time. And I raise that because if you're thinking about touring, you need to take into account like hopefully it's the summer and the fall. But if it's not, where are the opportunities going to be if that's your true calling? So what are the other areas? For our touring department at Atlantic, which we actually call artist development, we talk a lot about, they're leaning into live streaming because there's not really a touring business for them to drive. So other than them helping to help reshuffle tours as they're getting set up for the, late summer and fall, they've become our live streaming department. So the digital marketers, who are more busy than they've ever been because the entirety of music has become digital marketing, not just over the last decade, but in the last, 3 weeks, the touring department has leaned in and said, we'll own live streaming and we will help to figure this out. So the questions around live streaming really become, because I think live from your couch is going to get old, right? It'll be a thing that always exists, but like, that's not going to turn into a thing. Will there be new features and functions and new formats of live streaming that help to connect the gap between now and a future world where we're all able to go back and be in the physical space and be in the same room as artists and do all those things? And so I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that lots of people in the live streaming platform space are trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out, like, what are all the interactive features? What are the different kinds of formats that people might care about? Like, it can't just be the thing that we've been doing with live streaming for the last 10 years, because that didn't really connect. So I think that there's something there for people to think about. There's a lot happening in the virtual concert space. So we did a thing with a company called Wave XR, which is they build virtual worlds for touring, and they only do music. And so we did a thing with Galantis, which is an electronic act. And Galantis did a global live stream about 6 weeks ago, coincidentally right before the quarantine started. And you should go check it out on YouTube, Galantis. It's right up on their YouTube channel, and it's cool. And they did a live stream in front of, they're an electronic artist and they're pretty big, so they tend to play festivals, so they tend to play in front of lots of people. But they performed, I think, in the first 2 days, because we rebroadcasted it so the rest of the world could tune in. And I think between the initial live stream and the rebroadcast over the first 2 days, there was something like 150 or 200,000 people watch their virtual concert live stream. And that's a massive number for live streams. Lindsey Sterling has done it. So in a totally different space, Lindsey Sterling that has the violin. There have been a bunch of artists that have tried this out, and you should go check it out, because I think that it's a fascinating thing. Art, and it's not all animated. So the artist stands in a room and they put sensors all over their body, and then the production company builds a virtual, let's say, Skrillex. So Skrillex can look like an animated Skrillex, or he can look like a monster if he wants to, and he could perform on the moon. So Skrillex is a monster on the moon, but when he's moving around and DJing, everything is actually happening in real time, and the monster is actually Skrillex in a suit. We haven't actually done it with Skrillex. He's my example. You get it. So anyway, fascinating idea. I think it's super interesting. There's a lot of, like, how do you then tie in the incredible world of gaming that music hasn't done a ton with in the last 5 or 10 years? How do you tie that into the virtual concert world? Are we going to see this as additive to concerts? Is it going to be substitutional for now, and then like when concerts come, real world concerts come back, will this stuff all die off? I don't actually know, but I think it's a fascinating thing to think about. um I think there's a conversation to be had around like, is 9.99 still going to be the streaming model in 3, 5, 9 years, right? Or are we going to see people like Verizon and Apple and whatnot, bundle products together? And then on top of that, how does the economy impact that, right? Because subscriber growth is still happening around the world, but if the world goes into recession, how does that impact all streaming subscription? And also, how does it impact music specifically? Does it impact music more than Netflix, less than Netflix? We shall see. And so I think that's a fascinating thing to start thinking about. Music participation is up in a way that it's never been up before. TikTok has seen more growth in the last 90 days and the last 30 days than they've probably seen ever. It's exploding. Everybody's at home. Moms are getting on TikTok. I'm doing TikToks with my kids. TikTok is a massive participation thing. And unlike other kinds of streaming, you can't do it in the background, right? Whether you're creating or just consuming, you have to do it totally lean in. Whereas on YouTube and Spotify, it can be in the background. It can be something that you can do while you're doing other things. So how does music participation and the fact that you can only do that or this impact the other streaming services? And then UGC on YouTube is up as well. So in the last 3 weeks, and Billboard wrote a whole article that you should go read about this, YouTube music consumption, like for things like music videos and whatnot, is actually up, because the music market, like the streaming music market, is actually slightly down by a couple of points. But on YouTube, it's up, which makes sense because everybody's sitting on their computers. But UGC is actually up a lot more. And so both on the consumption side as well as on the creation side. So like, what does that mean? How does that impact? Is this a blip? When we all go back to our school, job, work, the whole thing, does this go back down again? Or because so many more people have come into the funnel and there's so many more, non-traditional, i.e. not 14, 15-year-olds on TikTok, and now there's 22-year-olds and 32-year-olds and 42-year-olds, are we actually going to see these things continue to grow even after we go back to some version of normal? Because I bet you normal is going to be abnormal for a really long time. I talked to you about Lizzo and catalog. Catalog in general is up, right? You're sitting at home, you're feeling funky. These are funky times. You want to feel some level of comfort. And for a lot of people, comfort isn't just the new record that came out. Comfort is the song that you loved last year, the song that you loved 3 years ago, the music that I grew up on when I was in college, right? A lot of my college friends are posting on Instagram and Facebook about, hey, remember, there was a post like 3 days ago about, remember, what was your favorite song that you heard when you were in the quad? And so we're still talking about, music we were listening to through the windows of the quad, because it's the thing that connects us all. So like catalog is growing in more than anything else right now, because people are looking for familiar time. And so as a music person, whether you're an artist and you want, like if I was an artist, I'd be thinking about what should I be covering right now, because people are looking for things that feel familiar to them. If I was a marketer, which I am, I'd be thinking about what should artists cover, but also how do I start to connect the dots between, an artist catalog, right? Say say Lizzo or say Bruno Mars, and how do I make sure that people are remembering that because they love those songs? How much content is enough? We are definitely going to see in the next 3 to 6 months a completely new world of video content. I bet artists are going to lean into podcasting more, but they can't make traditional music videos because they can't go anywhere, right? At least for the next month or two. Probably, we're going to see social distancing for a lot longer than that. So like, what is going to happen around content innovation? I think that's fascinating. I think there's going to be a lot of cool things around animation. I think artists are going to figure out how to do green screen stuff in their living room. I think as I said, the virtual concert space is ripe for the moment. And then the last thing is, I think when we thought streaming would explode, because I've been doing this a while, we thought it was going to make the world would get more global, and streaming would actually over index with global artists. And so that's true. And it certainly was true for the first 5 years. What's fascinating is, because of this movement in places like the United Kingdom and the US and Australia and France, where there's also this nationalism thing happening, but also maybe it's just culturally, people love to connect with music that's local. At any given moment, and this is not I've proven this out, but we've seen this enough times to believe that at any given moment, 7 out of any 10 songs on a chart in a local market around the world is local. And so global music is bigger than ever and massive and connects with people around the world. But like at any given moment, if you go look at the French local chart, you'll see that there's a lot more French music on there than there is global music, right? And by global, I mean usually Anglo music, things like Lizzo and Bruno Mars and Ed Sheeran. And that's fascinating as well, because it makes you start thinking about, should artists be thinking about multilingual, right, versions of their songs? Should you be thinking about multilingual versions of lyrics videos, which clearly has been happening for years? Should artists be thinking about recording with global artists? With local artists, that happens too. We've had a couple of artists who have recorded with, a rapper in the U.S. decided to make a song with the biggest rapper in Germany, so that we could do what we would call a remix, right, which is not really a remix, and put it out in Germany, because it'll actually resonate more with people in the local market. So I think, like, we all talk about how the world is getting smaller because of global, but like this local thing is even more real than we ever thought it would be. So that's fascinating to me. I think the last slide says you can ask me anything you want. I'm sorry, I closed my deck. Let me figure out how to go into AJ, how do I go into the Q&A? Let me see here. All right, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Let's see, we have like 7 minutes, 5 minutes.
We have plenty of time. We could actually start the panel discussion right at 3. So you could take as many questions as you want, and then let's get the other panelists on, if you all are listening at home, around 2:55.
Okay. So when an artist has, I'll try to pick the ones that jump out at me. When an artist has no label backing, what would you say is the best option to boost streams? It's an interesting question. So I don't tend to believe in, I'm gonna give you a roundabout answer. I don't tend to believe that we as a major record label should spend money on boosting streams inorganically, because I think that if your goal is to have a sustained career, we believe that, like, doing fake things, because there are plenty of stream farms in the world. I've met plenty of managers who spend money on, throwing, big managers with unsigned artists, where they might spend $5, $10, $50,000 on a stream farm that helps to drive, not necessarily fake streams on Spotify, but, fake streams on some platform. Or they buy followers, because there's plenty of services out on the internet. If you Google it, you get a million responses. I tend to think that stuff is a waste of money, frankly. I think it'll help you get into a viral chart if you spend enough money. But I think that we're all supposed to be in the build an artist organically business, not about juicing a song. And so what I would do if I had a limited amount of money and I had an unsigned artist is I would spend more of my money on content, and maybe find a service that has connections with places like DSPs, where they can get your song in front of the right people. I think that's a better use of money. I think, like, because the content side is, if you can get your song to show up because you find someone at one of the DSPs who falls in love with it and features it on a radio station, a DSP radio station, or a viral chart, or a bubbling playlist, or a bunch of bubbling playlists, or whatever, you want to make sure that there's more than just that song. And so you want to make sure that people can go into the rabbit hole of YouTube or the rabbit hole of the little catalog and discover the artist and decide they love them. I think there are plenty of people that have a very different point of view on the answer to this question, but I think they're generally wrong, because I think that we should all be in the put amazing music out in the world and then figure out how to, connect it with fans and connect it with people that run big playlists and whatnot, so that, so they fall in love and they become a champion, and be willing to spend 5 years turning your artist into whatever version of superstar they can become, rather than trying to dump a $2,000 bag of money or a $20,000 bag of money, because I just don't think that that's the business we're supposed to be in. I think we're supposed to be in the business and the art world, not just the business world. Let's see. In a recent Billboard article, you spoke about COVID-19. Oh, I love that somebody actually read that article. I hadn't read it until the other day. You mentioned a virtual notebook created by you and your team with 150 specific ideas for your artists to connect with fans during this time. Can you share some of those ideas and how they're being implemented? So we quickly said our company needs to become, hundreds and hundreds of digital marketers. Every single department needs to lean in. So we build a virtual notebook, which, you guys are pretty savvy. That was a word that I used with Billboard. Basically, we used OneNote, which is like Evernote, and we created a notebook that just had a ton of tabs covering everything from charity ideas, gaming ideas, fitness and wellness ideas, partner ideas. What's YouTube doing to lean into live streaming? What's Spotify doing? What opportunities exist with Station Head? Every single startup we could think of that reached out to us, from Station Head to Genero, which is a platform where, you crowdsource music video content. And so this notebook was basically a way to amass hundreds and hundreds of ideas, which it's actually way more than 150 now, because we add like 5 or 10 ideas a day. And then, so what has come out of it? So I'm trying to think of a specific example, but there's a lot. We have called artists and said, hey, we know you want to do something different than play live from your living room. Here's 5 of the ideas that our content team was kicking around. One of them was National Puppy Day was having a thing, and Matt Mason ended up Matt Mason's developing, not so developing anymore. He's actually getting to be pretty successful, but a super cool alternative artist who had just gotten a puppy. And so that was like literally from a list, and Matt Mason was already thinking about it because he knew about National Puppy Day because he had just gotten a puppy, and we did a National Puppy Day thing with Matt Mason. That's one of lots and lots of ideas. I think the most important part of that is sitting down with a pen and paper and organizing as a marketer every single idea you can think of, and then being willing to brainstorm with lots of other people and being willing to share. Like, you don't have to own your idea. Give it to other people. Somebody else will turn it into something great, and you're a part of something bigger than yourself. Let's see. How do you make sure that your marketing efforts count when everything... I just lost my question. Hold on, sorry. How do you make sure your marketing efforts count when everything on social media moves so quickly? Let's see. I think you embrace it. I don't think it's more complicated than... So one of Atlantic's secret sauces, and I think that this, depending on your point of view on the world, I think you should think about this as you look for your first job. One of Atlantic's secret sauces is that we believe in the internet. We believe in digital marketing. We believe in creative, and we believe that the internet is, as you know, massive. We believe that you need lots and lots of people, which is why when AJ introduced me, he talked about our 50 plus people. There are still lots of record labels that have a digital marketing person or 3 digital marketing people. And we think that to embrace everything that is amazing about the internet and all the connection that it affords and all the creativity it affords, you need lots of people. So I think the way we do it is we just put lots of resources against it, and we pay attention. And then, to my example of Lizzo, where something caught fire, the flute thing, right, or the DNA test thing, you grab a moment and then you just call everybody you can think of and you email everyone. And if you're not working at a major record label, don't be afraid to just email people, because most people will ignore you because they're really busy. But somebody might see your email and say, oh, that's really cool. Let me click on that. And maybe they feature that on your blog. And so I think it's about just allowing that. Doing lots of stuff is fine. Like, we do so many things that don't connect. And then we look for the moments that do, and we try to, put all of our effort around the moments that do. And we're not afraid to do lots of things that don't connect. And we don't overthink it. We don't think like, man, that sucks, that one thing we didn't work. Like, you've got to do 1,000 things to have one great thing connect. So for maybe both you and Lizzo, I love that Lizzo and I have commonality, where there's some points in the beginning of her career where you were a little discouraged of her progress, where at any point in the beginning of her career where you could have predicted her exploding career? It's a great question. So I guess discouraged isn't the right word, because I guess I think the answer is no. Like, we did I know that she would become a global phenomenon? No, absolutely not. I hoped. But I hope all of our artists become global phenomenons. And certainly in the beginning, it went slower than I would have liked, or that probably anybody, including Lizzo, would have liked. But I also, even not just in hindsight, but in the moment, I think what you learn over time is that you accept that real artist development still takes time. The equivalent, 20 years ago was an artist goes out and they grind on the road playing hundreds and hundreds of shows. That still happens, but in the world of the internet, there's lots of other things they have to do. And so I think that I've learned to accept that real artist development should take a long time, and it should require, building fans by one, and it shouldn't be about spending a ton of money and hoping something's going to explode. And sometimes that happens, because sometimes you catch a song and it explodes, and that's amazing. But you should actually plan for it taking a long time, because I don't want any of you, as you build your career, those of you that aren't artists, I don't want your career to explode either. Because the beauty of this whole thing is you get better as you get experience, you get smarter, you learn how to do things that you didn't know how to do 3 years ago. As the general manager, there are so many things I've learned over the last year that I didn't know until I was in a new role. And so I think for artists, it's the same thing. We have had artists, without a doubt, who have been signed, who their first song out was a huge song, and then they weren't ready for the spotlight. And so, you're putting them on stages in front of so many people, and they just haven't done all the work yet, not because they didn't want to, but they wrote a hit song and the world loved the song. And so now all of a sudden they're doing interviews, but they haven't done their 10,000 hours of interviews yet. And so their interviews, less than, perfect. And so anyway, it's a hard thing to become a global superstar instantly. And so I think what I've learned is to accept that, taking a long time is actually good, not bad. And so that's Atlantic's mantra is, we're not in a rush. If something takes off, cool, we'll figure out what to do with it, but we're not in a rush. What social media platform do you think is best adapted for organic artistic expression? TikTok, SoundCloud, Instagram? Yes. Yes. I think the answer is yes. I think that as an artist, you should pick what you love. And when we sign a new artist, we sit with them and we talk to them, and almost everybody asks that question. And they say, should I be everywhere? Should I just be on Instagram? Because Instagram was the thing that people talk about the most when they're coming in as a new artist. And I think the answer is like, what do you like doing? What do you not like doing, right? Do you like TikTok or do you not like TikTok? And, 3 years or 2 years ago, I actually have a Musically thing that I'm drinking out of here, which was the predecessor to TikTok, most of you probably know. And like, when it was back still Musically, artists didn't really want to talk about it. They didn't get it. Some artists did, but most didn't. And, a couple of years on, artists have started figuring out like how to make content and engage with fans in the community on TikTok in a way that they didn't really get just a couple of years ago. So if you love TikTok, you should embrace it. And don't be corny, be who you are and be authentic. And and maybe it'll help you explode. We have an artist named Apso Facto who's got a bigger social following on TikTok than he has on Instagram because he embraced the community, not the challenges, not the he accepted that it wasn't about using the tools. It was actually about viewing TikTok as a community. So I think TikTok's a great platform. I think Instagram's a great platform. I think YouTube is a great platform that's underutilized by music-based artists. I think artists underutilize the community features and the live features, and like YouTube is massive and inherently social if you just learn how to use it. And so if an artist is really comfortable with one or two, that's where they should start. And maybe over time they need to get comfortable with more than one or two. But if they're comfortable with all of them because they're 19 years old and super fluent in the internet and all these things, then they should do all of them. I don't think there's an answer, but I also don't think they should force it. I don't think they should force their music, and I don't think they should force where they connect with fans in the beginning, and I don't think they should force content. I think they should do what makes them great, and if they don't become great, it's not a marketing problem, it's a creative problem. Like, marketing is about leveraging great creative. In the 4th annual Music Business Forum, you spoke about the importance of confidence. Wow. I'm trying to remember. Okay. Has there ever been a moment early in your career where you did not capitalize on an opportunity due to a lack of confidence? That's a perfect tee up, Joshua Hernandez. Thank you very much. To my not accepting twice the job at Atlantic Records. So I don't know if it was confidence, but I think in hindsight, that was definitely a part of it. So I was super comfortable at Warner. I loved being at corporate. I was working on new deals. I was working on innovation. I worked with all the labels across the globe. It was a fascinating job. And when Atlantic called and said, we want you to come help us break artists and build the future of digital marketing, I didn't know how to do that because I was a corporate guy working at corporate with a background in software and finance and management. And I loved music and I loved working with the labels, but I didn't know the first thing about how to break an artist. I didn't actually do marketing. I loved marketing, but I didn't actually do it. I understood how to help the labels do their jobs. And so I almost missed that moment. I turned it down. The CEO of Atlantic called me, Julie Greenwald, who's an amazing leader. She tried to convince me to take the gig. I ended up going out for dinner with the general manager of Atlantic at the time, who's become an amazing mentor for me. And over maybe a period of a week and a half, I changed my mind. And someone actually said to me, they gave me an amazing piece of advice, a dear friend, and he said, and actually maybe I'll give him a shout out because he's one of the co-founders of, oh man, it's going to come back to me. StockX, the sneaker exchange. He actually said to me, because we worked together at the time, he said, it's clear to me that you're fighting with your head and your heart, and follow your heart, man. Follow your heart. Don't follow your head. Follow your heart. And this is one of the most logical, head-centric intellectual people that I know. And he told me to follow my heart. And my heart was, I want to actually be in the record business. And so I decided to take the jump to Atlantic. So I was nervous. It took me years to learn how to be a record label person. But I think eventually I made the jump. Important. Am I right? Am I out of time?
Well, there's one more, and it's from Tyreek McKenzie, and John Sinclair thinks it's a great question, so I'd like to bring it up.
Oh, I don't want to hear anything from my brother.
How do you discover talents like Lizzo and Bruno Mars? And after that, I'd like to invite the other presenters for the panel discussion.
Okay, so how do we discover talent like Lizzo and Bruno Mars? So, let's see. So for Lizzo came through, I'll just answer both of those directly because they're different. Lizzo came to us because she had become friendly with Ricky Reeves, who I mentioned. She became friends with one of the A&R people at Atlantic in LA through hanging out in the studio, because that, right? So it was the producer, one of our A&R people, and Lizzo all just became friends. And through that experience, the A&R person at Atlantic, ended up hearing a bunch of the demos that Lizzo was working on. So, that was the music industry is a people-centric place. If you work in A&R, there's plenty of A&R research that happens. We have an entire research team who studies the internet to find what tracks are popping on Spotify or TikTok or YouTube or whatever. But we also have just go hang out around artists and just find people that you believe in. And because at the end of the day, it's not about a song, it's about an artist. And so the Lizzo experience came from a very, very one-on-one, person-to-person interaction. Bruno, I guess, was sort of similar, except that I said he was signed to Motown before Atlantic. And so Bruno came from, he had actually co-written a bunch or written a bunch of songs for a bunch of Atlantic artists, including he wrote one of Flo Rida's biggest hits. And so that experience came through him as a songwriter writing for Atlantic artists. And that created an introduction between Bruno, writing lots and lots of songs, and our chairman, becoming friends, and Bruno just playing him music under the guise of a songwriter. And so, eventually he walked in and said, like, my deal's up at Motown. I would love to be in Atlantic. I would love to chat. The other way, I guess, the more non-traditional way that we all live in now, which everybody talks about, is the research world, where we have a whole team of people that are data centric, and they just scour the internet and they find songs or albums or artists or whatever. But at the end of the day, we don't sign someone because of a song blowing up on TikTok, because that's not what Atlantic does well. We then go hang out with Pink Sweats, is a great example, and spend tons of time with him. And we learn whether or not we're the right fit for him and he's the right fit for us. Because if you're going to invest 5 years in an artist, you want to make sure that you're like, you have a great relationship, because this is a relationship business, and we want to make sure we like each other. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he wants to make sure, Pink Sweats, that he's got champions in the building. And so it's not just about, like, we talked about the artist deal earlier in one of the presentations from Jenna. Like, it's not just about the deal, it's about the relationship, because at the end of the day, we're all in this, and the artist is in this for their life. Like, this is the career they've chosen, and we all have a responsibility to make sure that we like working together, because 5 years or 10 years is a really long time to be in business together.